Hello there, and welcome to the Cocoa Butter Junkie podcast. I'm Michelle, and this is my podcast. This is a podcast on the everyday reflections and experiences of a Kenyan woman. It is my examination of life living through mental health issues, grief, growing up, aka kicking and screaming into adulthood, the experiences of being a woman in Kenya, making friends as an adult, struggles with faith, and a bunch of other topics. Thank you for listening. Today, I want to talk about my experience with depression and anxiety. If I really think about it, these are conditions that I have had since I was a child. I remember being a kid and feeling sad for no reason that I could articulate. And as a teenager in high school, I remember my friends asking what was wrong and being concerned, and me not being able to tell them because I had been silent and upset for long periods of time, and I didn't know why. Between how I was raised, the school system, the church, I could think about a few thousand reasons why I developed anxiety. What I didn't know was that the memory issues, the overthinking, overanalyzing, avoidance, sweating, panic attacks, constant worrying, rapid heartbeats, insomnia, constant people-pleasing, hypervigilance, overplanning, constant agitation, and a lack of patience with myself and others were symptoms of anxiety. I also didn't realize that overeating/not eating, oversleeping/insomnia, skipping classes/work, staying for long periods in the shower, misanthropy, feeling useless, suicidal thoughts, waking up in the morning and the first thought on my mind was, oh God, another day, not showering, constant fatigue, self-hate, feeling like I'm just floating along life, overwhelming, tangible, soul-crushing sense of sadness for long periods of time are all signs of depression. The first time I knew something was not quite right, although I'd been feeling this way for a long time, was when a doctor prescribed certain medication which ended up making the depression and anxiety symptoms worse. Actually, at this point in time, I thought that mental health issues were things only white people in movies struggled with. But even feeling this way, I knew I needed to see a professional. At this point, I wasn't leaving my house for weeks at a time, but if anyone came to visit, especially my family, I would pack up and act like everything was normal. But the minute they left, I would be back to my real self. The first time I brought up the topic of seeing a doctor with my family, I remember the awkward, dismissive silence that family gives you when you say something outrageous. Let me point out here how self-aware I was to realize that I needed a doctor, but at the same time thinking that mental issues only affected white celebrities in the movies. I tried to push the issue, but I was dismissed. Mind you, I was in my 20s already and could go see a doctor if I wanted to, but there's just something about family influence. I don't blame them though. They probably had the same mindset as me at the time. Let me just break here and ask you to examine yourself. If you have felt any of the signs and symptoms I've talked about, especially for a long period of time, continuously, and by a long time I mean more than 2 weeks, I think you should talk to a professional about your symptoms to determine if you're suffering from any mental health issues. At the end of the episode, I will leave a few mental health professional social media accounts and some apps that you can download to help you with your mental health. I would also like to point out that I'm here if you need to talk about what you're experiencing. If you need to, you can send me a voice note on anchor.fm/cocobutterjunkie. So fast forward 8 years later, and yes, 8 years and a bunch of several events happened that forced me to go see a doctor. Actually, a family member was referred to a psychiatrist and I went with them for their first appointment. I knew this was my opportunity to get help, so I booked my first session on that very same day. If you don't know the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist, you can go ahead and Google. But basically, a psychiatrist is a medical doctor. They will listen to you just like a normal doctor and recommend lifestyle changes, prescribe medication just like any other doctor, and even refer you for psychological therapy, which is where a psychologist comes in. So it took several visits and tests, some of which were oral and others were written. So don't worry, these are not tests you can fail. I remember taking a test called the Beck Depression Inventory, and my score was high, guys. I think it was over 40. My doctor started by putting me on sleeping meds at a low dose. He figured because I wasn't sleeping, the symptoms would improve if I just got some sleep, but they didn't work. So he put me on different sleeping meds at a higher dose, but they also did nothing for me. That's when he started me on antidepressants. Initially, I wasn't willing to get on medication because I had this idea that I could get addicted to them or they would turn me into a zombie. It took some convincing from him, and I was in a bad place anyway and was willing to take all the help I could get. So I agreed to get on the medication. We tried about 4 different meds before we found the one that worked for me and had side effects I could stand. If you're currently on any sort of antidepressants or mental health meds, please do so under the strict supervision of a doctor. It seems obvious, but I feel like I need to say it. I have done a list of things you should know about being on antidepressants on my mental health IG. Just open up the mental health highlight on @thiskenyanwoman on Instagram. I've named the story if you're considering taking medication for your mental health. But basically, number 1, obviously, consult your psychiatrist and never miss follow-up appointments. These meds are no joke. You need to be monitored by your doctor. Number 2, don't be ashamed because you need help. You're strong just for realizing that for the moment, your brain needs a little help. 3, don't be bullied into continuing with medication that is not working for you. If you don't feel any improvement after 8 weeks, consider asking for different medication. 4, it might take a while for the meds to start working. The average is 6 to 8 weeks. Antidepressants are not like normal medications like antimalarials where you feel better immediately. They take weeks to work, so be patient, but at the same time, monitor yourself. Number 5, there are side effects with any medication, so you need to brace yourself. 6, you're not alone. Number 7, do what you need to do to take care of yourself, and please do not miss any dosage. Number 8, the meds will go well with psychological therapy. 9, psychiatrists, psychologists, and meds in Kenya are not cheap. It sucks, I know. Number 10, please Google the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. And lastly, you've got this. I'm no longer on medication, but I'm thankful that they were able to help. I made the decision to stop taking the meds because I felt like I was in a better place. The medication helped me feel more normal. I don't know how else to explain it. If I was feeling anxious, they helped me feel more calm, and I no longer felt the overwhelming sadness I felt with depression. Thankfully, I'm in a better place now. I slowly came off the medication under my doctor's supervision until I took the last pill earlier this year. I say I'm in a better space to mean that I feel like I'm able to handle my mental health without the meds. If your doctor feels like you should be on meds, please do your research, get a second opinion, and at the end of the day, if you feel like meds will help, please go ahead and get on them. Of course, I'm not a doctor, I'm just speaking from my own experience. Some meds may make you feel like a zombie, yes. You can always ask your doctor to change them. And I have not developed a dependency on any of the ones that I've been on, so don't be scared of addiction. I'll stop here and ask how you are doing. How is your mental and emotional health, especially in this time of COVID? Let me know. You can talk to me by leaving a voice note on anchor.fm/kukubatajunkie, or you can DM me on @thiskenyanwoman on Instagram and Twitter. Apps I use for my mental health are Inuka, Youper, spelled YOUPER, and Wiser, spelled WYSA. I'm an Android user, so these are the apps I use. If you're on iPhone, maybe you can do your research. You can also follow Nedra Tawab on IG for mental health posts. Nedra is spelled NEDRA. Tawab is spelled TAWWAB. On YouTube, I follow Psychology Demystified, Dr. Tracy Marks, Live by Design with Grace Karaoke, and Therapy in a Nutshell. I've also done a Pinterest board on mental health. I will leave the link in the show notes. Please have a look and see if you feel any of the same symptoms. Please also send me your app/IG/YouTube recommendations for mental health. So that's it for today. Thanks for listening and have a lovely week ahead.